They said you were the best in the Parsec.
That's right. Welcome to
Parsec Passion, a podcast about Disney Plus's The Mandalorian, the first Star Wars weekly live-action TV show. My name's Bubba, and with me, as always, is somebody who always is busting a gut. It's Catfish. Catfish, how you doing?
Oh, I am doing great, Bubba. I am so excited that this show is back. I didn't even mind the other day that I got an email saying that my Disney Plus trial would soon be over. And I'll have to fork over hard-earned cash for this. Well-deserved. I have not opened Disney Plus in a very long time. This show, beautifully shot. The score, I don't know what our friend Double M at Murdoch is going to say. I love this score. It's just a pleasure that it's back. And I think that I may have given it a bit of higher rating just because it's back. And I think when you get into it, you can nitpick things, etc. But it is just a beautifully shot, produced, acted show. I love it. I'm excited. What about you, Bubba?
Catfish, let's not waste any time. You might have spoiled it already, but what is your rating for Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian, The Marshal? What is your rating out of 10?
I am giving it 9. What we all know as is triple Bs.
Triple Bs?
Yeah, triple B is when you come up with a plan and you're like, you put out the bantha, and then it turns out that you have bypassed bantha bait. And instead, you're the one who are gone. As I said, I love this show. I think I know what you're going to say. You know, we talked a lot last season, Bubba, about like, oh my God, it's another kind of weekly serial thing. Some we enjoyed, some we enjoyed less. Here we have it again today where the Mandalorian is easily distracted, takes on another whole side quest just to get some armor back. But then I realized, Bubba, and I don't know whether this why it didn't hit me last year, this entire series is a side quest. This has nothing to do with his life, all of a sudden being responsible for taking Twyoda somewhere. I just wish, if I was him, I'd be like, when am I going to get paid for one of these things? You know, my ship doesn't get retrofitted for free.
Oh, man.
But all that aside, love the episode. Happy it was back. There was some excitement at the end. Spoiled a little bit already, sadly. But we'll talk about when we get there. What was your rating for this episode, Bubba?
Well, Catfish, you went 9 out of 10 triple Bs. That's incredibly high. I went on a different scale, so my rating's going to be low, and I have a million thoughts that I want to get into about it. My rating for this Chapter 9, the first episode of Season 2, The Marshal, I'm giving it 7 double Fs out of 10.
Oh, yeah. Wait, what? Double Fs?
Double Fs are for fake Fetts. We had a fake Fett for most of the episode, and then we revealed the real Boba Fett. Oh, my goodness. I have a million things. 7 out of 10 is low for me, Catfish. The big thing,
I'm shocked.
and I am going to nitpick this to death. The big thing, I want to jump on your bandwagon, even while I was out picking the nits. I'm going to tell you, so much of this episode, I had a big smile on my face, and it's like we needed it back. Everybody knows this year, 2020, has been so tough, and I'm very, very glad it's back. I'm going to jump into some of those nitpicks, this never-ending side quest adventure, but I'm going to hope that not the fake Fett, but the real Fett at the end of the episode is going to open this up to a much larger world. Listeners, we've given you our ratings. We want to know what you think. Write to us on social media at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ. Leave those YouTube comments. We need you to subscribe. We are going to reward you. We are going to reward our double Ls.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah. How are we going to do that? Well, I mean, first of all, their first reward is they're getting it right now.
Oh, yeah. You're going to pick up the puck if you help us out. So there are hundreds, probably thousands, I'm probably discounting some, thousands of places you can get your Star Wars fix. And by listening to us and by subscribing, whether it's on a podcast platform, whether it's on YouTube, we want to celebrate our subscribers, and we have got so many prizes we're going to be giving away. We're going to be giving away classic Power of the Force action figures. We're going to be giving away stuffed plushies and a couple of great pop figures, but the ultimate prize for one double L loyal listener is going to be the double M.
The double M?
The Mega Mandalorian. We've got Catfish. You found this thing. This is they say it's 10 inches. It looks gigantic compared to a regular pop figure. This is a Mandalorian with the child, with Baby Yoda, Twyoda, as we call him here on the Parsec Passion podcast. This thing is incredible. This thing is beautiful. And one lucky subscriber to the podcast, subscriber on YouTube, is going to be eligible to win this. You've got to listen all season. We're going to give it away at the end of season 2 in the month of December 2020. This is incredible, Catfish. How did you find this thing?
Well, it was very, very difficult. There's this site called Amazon.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, you go in and you type in Mandalorian Funko, and so many different things come up. But this one, I was like, holy cow. It's amazing. It is imposing. It is just the way you should think of the Mandalorian in your mind. 3 times as big as anything else.
It's incredible. Now, listeners, once again, we have too many prizes. We've got so many prizes, it feels like we're going to give one to every listener of the podcast, every viewer of the YouTube video. So how can you win? Well, in the past, we asked for like reviews with hashtag Parsec Passion on things like YouTube or iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, that kind of thing. But because we're really making a push for subscribers, what we want you to do is if you subscribe to this podcast, and maybe you do it on your phone app, take a screen grab of our podcast with the picture of subscribed, highlighted, and shows your subscriber, and send it to us. If you're on YouTube, once again, do a screen grab of the subscribed, send it to us. Now, that's asking an awful lot, listeners, but these prizes are so wonderful, and you're going to get them for free. And once again, I feel like, we have hundreds and hundreds of people who listen to us talk silly about the Mando. And so I really think the numbers that are actually going to take screen grabs who show that they're subscribed and send them to us, I think you're going to have a really good shot. I bet you'd have a 1 in 50 shot of winning one of these great prizes. And because we have so many prizes, that might get down to like 1 in 3. But anyway, listeners, we need you to subscribe. We want you to join us on this bounty hunt for a package, hunt for a client as we go down Mandalorian Season 2. It's going to be exciting.
I am super excited. I'm already sad that there's one less episode I can watch in the next couple months.
Catfish, I am too. Now, this podcast, bringing us back to Season 2, is also going to be jam-packed. We're going to have a musical analysis from Double M Matt Murdock. If you listen to other podcasts here on the Double P Media family, you have heard Matt's brilliant analysis of these scores, of these songs, of these musical themes that you hear in episodes, and we're going to play one at the end of this episode. We are also going to do some of our classic games, our good grief, our griefs beefs. We've also got some other new fun sections at the end of this podcast. Tell our listeners about them, Catfish.
Well, as we watched more and more last year, you just can't help. There were a lot of moments that I like to call, we call the child, since he's sort of Yoda, but he's the 50, so he's not really a child. He's more of I call him a tween, so we call him Twyoda. So it feels like in every episode last year, there was like one, what I like to call Twodorable moment.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like they really leaned on that this year. So every episode, we're going to decide what our Twodorable moment is. And then also, we're going to nominate and choose our Mando snarkiest line of the episode.
We sure are. And listeners, we're also going to change our griefs beefs a bit into some real debate, some real challenges. We're going to fire up our anger, and we're going to unleash it. That's going to be later on in the podcast. But before we start off, Catfish, breaking down this episode directed by series creator Jon Favreau, the actual first episode he's directed. He's executive produced and overseen all the episodes. This is the first one he directed. But while we're going to have a big debate at the end, I'm going to start talking about my picking nits right here at the top. And that is...
Okay, do it.
As a lifelong Star Wars fan, and listen to our preview podcast of The Mandalorian where I talked about seeing the original New Hope 10 times in the theater. There was a part of me that really, when I saw Tatooine, I thought, oh no, we're going back here again? Tatooine is in 2 of the 3 original trilogy movies. It's in every single prequel movie, and it's in the final, spoiler alert, it's in the final The Rise of Skywalker movie of the sequel trilogy. Not only that, it has been in The Mandalorian. We were just there last season, and so now we're going back, and here's an even another point. If you study this trailer, Catfish, there is a shot in the trailer that is Mando and the child, Baby Yoda, Twyoda, on that speeder bike with that Boba Fett armor that did not appear in this first episode. So that tells me we're going to be in Tatooine next week, possibly following up of Boba Fett. You assume this is 5 years after Return of the Jedi, 5 years after he went into the Sarlacc pit and somehow escaped. We're going to be on Tatooine, maybe following that. Now, that could be good. That could be opening up the story a bit more. But for part of me, I was sick of Tatooine. How did you feel, Catfish, jumping back to Tatooine, seeing familiar characters like Peli Motto, who runs the hangar there in Mos Eisley? How did you feel coming back to this planet, this location? We've got a whole galaxy we can explore. We came back to it one more time. How did you feel?
I didn't mind it. I think that what happened last year was when we came back to places that we were a little upset because we're like, man, this is a big galaxy. Do you have to go back to a place, another planet you've been to? It seems like that's not where you'd want to go if you're trying to return Twyoda. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it this episode. I can see where you would be like, oh, I kind of want to see something new. I didn't mind it. When we talked about the trailer and we had a hint of Boba Fett, I had said to you, I don't want this to be like the entire season be about finding Boba Fett. At least it didn't take us long to find him.
Hey, there he is.
See how much we'll see how much he dominates this season. So that didn't bother me at all. I mean, I know we're going to see some old friends this season, so we're definitely going to go back. Sounds to me like an ominous line was that we were going to see Cobb again. He's like, hope to hang out with you again. I love Timothy Olyphant. He really helped them kind of lean into the Western kind of thing. Yeah. So that's fine, but we are going to have to kick into like a larger storyline without him being distracted by things eventually.
Catfish, when I heard Cobb Vanth say that line, hope we can see each other again sometime, I immediately thought of last year's structure where we met Ugnaughty Quill, the Ugnaught, in the first episode. And then we met Cara Dune in, I believe, the fourth episode. Then we met IG-11 also in that first episode, I should say. And then we had to gather up all the heroes for the end. This almost felt like a similar thing where I hope to see you again in the final episode this season, episode 8. We'll all regather and there will be Cobb back saying, hey guys, how's this doing? You like my helmet hair? Still looks perfect, right? So that's what I thought. But what I want to get to, here I am saying, oh, enough of Tatooine. But then I said maybe this can open up the story more. So far, this is a show aimed at kids and everybody, to be honest. It's aimed at everybody, but also kids. It's a very simple story. Find Yoda's species, get Baby Yoda back to his people, while also being hunted by Moff Gideon. The idea that Boba Fett's in this, and that, once again, it feels like we're going to be, based on the trailer, it feels like we're going to be in Tatooine at the beginning of next episode, like, oh, wait a minute, maybe Boba Fett really wants his armor, and yet there's another antagonist, another hurdle, and that'll open the show more. So I'm a bit excited about that. Now, here I've been talking about, hey, enough of Tatooine. We actually start on a different planet. We start on a planet, as far as I can tell from these online searches. Nobody's told us what that planet is yet, but we have the Mando and the child. It goes wherever he goes. They're walking through this graffiti-run city, and they're going to see Gor Koresh. Better than David Koresh to go see, but going to see Gor Koresh, character voiced by John Leguizamo. And it's there in the fighting ring. What did you think about this first scene, Catfish, of Mando? He's got to find other Mandalorians, and he's going to find them. So theoretically, they've got these coverts all around the galaxy, and maybe one of these coverts can say, oh, I recognize Baby Yoda's species. What did you think of our first big scene with the one-eyed gangster?
I think it was a nice reintroduction to what this show is about. There was nothing groundbreaking about the scene or the fight or the fact that he's going to go to people for help and get betrayed and then have to bust their asses down for doing it. But it was just a nice, like, as I said, it was a nice, like, yep, this is what this series is about. Mando outnumbered and apparently outgunned and handling things with ease. I was a little concerned because I didn't know whether Twyoda had to pay for a seat. He seemed to be hovering over a seat, but he wasn't sitting in it.
Yeah, there with the Gamorrean battle. It's like, come on. Adults, 20 credits. Children, 8 and under, 10 credits. Under 50, well, he's not a child. He's got to pay full rate. So, yeah, is it weird that you... Well, let's be honest. What do you call them? Twodorable moments, Catfish? Say it one more time for him.
Yeah, twodorable moments.
We saw it in the trailer. But I watched this episode with a big group of people, socially distanced, outside on a projector screen. And when Baby Yoda, closes his pram because he realizes that the Bantha Poodoo's about to go down, everybody in the audience laughed, even people who said they were watching The Mandalorian for the very first time. So that was a really fun, twodorable moment right there. Loved it.
Very cute. It was in the trailer. So we're very familiar with that, having broken the trailer down frame by frame. Still very cute. Once again, a reminder, another thing that we are going to be monitoring all season is Twyoda. Should he have been brought or should he have been left at home?
Great question. How about this, Catfish? You had a great question about does Twyoda have to pay for a seat? How about this? When you're in a rumble, when you're in a brawl, how smart is it to punch the guy wearing metallic Beskar armor? These guys beating him up for Gor Koresh keep hitting that helmet or hitting his chest plate, and I'm like, that doesn't seem very smart. You got to land these punches in the places where the armor isn't. Thugs, let's go.
Yeah, I don't think that Gor Koresh is giving his people SAT tests before hiring them. So I didn't mind that. They're dumb. That's why the Mandalorian gets by with his smarts and also the incredible cheat code of his little flying bullets that take out like 8 people at a time.
Let me ask you this. Yeah. The Jedi are great. But how could the Jedi defeat whistling birds? Everybody should get some of these things. They're great.
You would think people would go all... For me, if I was like, do you want armor, or you can buy armor, or you can buy these whistling birds? It'd be whistling birds for me every time.
I think so. Listeners, we are bringing up ideas, sometimes serious, sometimes ridiculous. Once again, at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ. Send in those screen grabs. Prove you're a subscriber. I promise you're going to win something. We got so many prizes. And once again, I've got an old Power of the Force Gamorrean Guard action figure that I'm going to be giving away. These Gamorrean guards, these green pigs, we're fighting with Vibra axes. That's another big Star Wars almost Easter egg, I want to say. Hey, here are the guards, skinny fighting shape guards that you saw of the fat pigs who guarded Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. So many of them. Now, Mando grabs Gor Koresh, hangs him up, and we find out once again his plan. I'm going to go find other Mandalorians. We have these coverts everywhere where we're in hiding ever since the Great Purge, one would assume. And tell me where you've seen one. Now, Gor Koresh says, hey, there's a Mandalorian on Tatooine. The Mando has been on Tatooine, and we know this. He's like, I've never heard this. I wonder how Gor Koresh has possibly heard this. Does he have some sort of in with the mining guild? But as this cold open ends, we see that Mando is stone cold. He doesn't care if this is a Disney show. He's going to leave Gor Koresh hanging upside down to become a Gor Komesh as the red-eyed wolves or whatever they were attack him in the streets. This is violent Disney stuff. I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing like a nice little Gor kebab when you're out on a cold night.
So we're going back to Tatooine. That was, when I heard that, I was kind of like, huh? Of course, I had seen it in the trailer. I knew we were heading back. Next thing we see Mando's ship, the Razor Crest, flying over Tatooine. We see a Tusken Raider. If you want to call them cruel, call them sand people, riding on a bantha as it flies back in. And we see Peli Motto again. And here is another 2 Easter eggs that I'm beginning to wonder, and maybe we'll have this as one of our grief beef battles coming up, is, are there too many Easter eggs? Obviously, the pit droids we had seen before in Tatooine with Peli's hangar there. But now we see R5. R5 is the droid, and this is supposed to be the same droid that appeared in A New Hope. Luke goes out to the Sandcrawler. His Uncle Owen's there. They're going to buy some droids. They pick C-3PO, and then they pick this other astromech droid, R5, who's rolling around. R5 blows up, and then he's like, hey, it's got a bad motivator. C-3PO says, well, what? You should hire my friend, the blue one. Long story short, they get R2-D2. So believe it or not, there in Peli's hangar, R5, the same one we saw all those years ago in A New Hope. Googity oggity oggy. That was 9 years prior in this timeline that we're in now. And what do you think about Amy Sedaris, the actress who plays Peli Motto Catfish? This is her second time through. Were you heartwarmed seeing this familiar face?
We the two of us, like to consider ourselves comedians, whether other people agree with us or not.
Right.
That's what we like to see ourselves. So of course I love comedy, and I love comedy bits especially in The Mandalorian. But it just feels a little too Borscht Belt comedy for me. It's the type of comedy here that feels a little bit out of place. So I wasn't like, oh, thank God she's back. This is not her fault. This is kind of the way they're writing. I mean, they're writing it, and you hire Amy Sedaris, and you want
That's
that kind of comedy.
That's exactly right. You sure do. Now, Peli Motto sees Mando in little Twyoda, and she's like, oh, he's still good. Thank the Force. Now, this gets me to a possible grief beef as well. Another nick to pick at, and that is Mando, once again, he's heard of the Force because he doesn't react like, what do you mean, thank the Force? But he doesn't understand how that ties to Jedi or anything. How did you feel about that?
Well, it's funny because, it's well established, and I'll say it again for those of you who may be new. You are a very, very heavy-duty Star Wars fan. And while I enjoy Star Wars fans, I've seen all the movies multiple times, I am not what I would consider myself a fanatic. So things that you might notice or that might bother you won't bother me, these kinds of Easter eggs. But I was slightly taken aback at that moment, too. Like, thank the Force. Based on what happened in season 1, this is not like a kind of a well-known thing in the Jedi, or these like his mysterious in the past foes of the Mandalorians. And so I'm not quite sure. Like, we didn't feel that. In other words, we weren't set up by season 1 to think that someone saying thank the Force was a normal thing that people would say openly in front of everybody as if it's a completely cool thing to say. You know what I mean? It feels a little bit more underground or unknown than that. Right. As far as the Force.
In the movies, it feels at times like "May the Force be with you" is a common saying. Even non-Jedi have said to each other in some of these movies. Mando was homeschooled. He didn't learn any of these. He was homeschooled in a covert, maybe, and he hasn't learned any of these things. All
right, well, let me say this. First of all, I thought there was a really nice carryover from last season that sort of was didn't make too big a deal out of it. But in other words, last season when he came and he's like, keep your filthy robots off of my ship. But he's a lot cooler with robots now after his interaction with IG-88. And so this has changed him in a very concrete way.
Okay, that is a great point. Doesn't seem to come up much more, but we really don't run into any more droids once Mando borrows a speeder and heads out to this city.
I mean, he doesn't go like, well, let me tell you why. That's not the way he rolls anyway, but it is nice to see in kind of a subtle way.
I have this great soliloquy on my change of heart.
Yes, hold on.
Now, Catfish, he goes out to this Mos Pelgo city, this lost city, in search of this Mandalorian, which he heard about from Gor Koresh. He pulls up into town. This is a very Western-feeling town, isn't it, Catfish? Here, this settlement out in the desert.
It's completely Western, along with the fact that until a certain point, it seems almost abandoned. There's no one in there drinking except for him. When the first attack comes, there's a few people. Yep. Later on, when they all gather together, there's more people, like 25. I don't know. Really
Everybody else was in the school.
Town. Oh, got it. Understood.
Okay, so he goes into a bar. Let's talk about this. And he sees this bartender played by W. Earl Brown. Many people know him from Deadwood. They know him from There's Something About Mary. Famous character actor. He was in the movie Scream. He's dressed as a Weequay alien. The Weequays, you saw many of them in Jabba's palace and in the sail barge fight in Return of the Jedi. Catfish, in our trailer discussion, we had a long discussion about is addressing Mando as Mando, is that offensive in any way? Like, hey, Mando, I'm asking this because the Marshal comes in at one point in the episode and he's like, Weequay, get me some drinks. It is like, that is his species. That is possibly very cold of Cobb Vanth.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's he's out there in the territories, and even though he saves guys, clearly he's got some interspecies issues that we might talk about later.
Oh, he sure does. That's a great point. So Cobb Vanth is there in Boba Fett's armor. Now, this will be a great question for you, Catfish, because I've talked to some people who watched the episode, really enjoyed it. They didn't even realize that was Boba Fett's armor, number one. And number two, they didn't realize that, hey, this guy's too tall and skinny to be Boba Fett. What did you think when you saw Cobb Vanth standing there in the bar doorway in that Boba Fett armor?
Okay, so I realized it was Mandalorian armor, but I'm one of those people that did not realize, oh, that's Boba Fett's armor. So that moment had a lot less impact on me than it did in those other people. I will say this, as he walked in, he started speaking, and Ms. Catfish was like, oh, man, is that Timothy Olyphant? I said, yeah. She's like, oh, yeah, you can tell he walks. That's how Timothy Olyphant walks. So I'm guessing that even if our boy, the Mandalorian, wasn't in his armor for that scene, that our boy was. And, of course, the shocking thing that he does, and, of course, when I thought this might still be a Mandalorian, I thought, Timothy Olyphant is a Mandalorian. When he takes his helmet off, I'm like, see, you can take your helmet off if you're a Mandalorian. But, of course, that's the trigger to the Mandalorian we see in his gaze, which, again, they do a couple times in this episode, like come in close to his face, like we're going to see something on his face. No, it's a damn mask. We're not seeing anything.
Would it help, Catfish, if they added like a sound effect of Mando going, what?
Oh, right. It was like, what the hell?
They lied to me back in the covert.
So that's when I realized, oh, crap, this dude is not a Mandalorian.
No, he's not. We learn his backstory. This is something straight out of a series of books, and I'll ask you this in a bit, but first thing I want to say, if for listeners, if you did not happen to notice it immediately that it was Boba Fett's armor, that I think in some ways is actually okay, because this armor looked like it had been really beaten up. Boba Fett's armors in the movies, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, was always beat up, but this was especially beat up because theoretically it had come out of a sarlacc, and so it was scuffed. Most of the paint was off it. So we find out, hey, there's going to be a standoff. Hey, I want that armor. Wait a minute, I bought this armor from Jawas. I don't care. My creed says I have to take it. When suddenly they are interrupted by a perfectly timed Krayt Dragon. This dragon comes straight through town, straight from Dune, and eats a bantha. So, Catfish, what did you think? This is an incredible special effect. I actually think this show, Disney is throwing all their cash on it. I thought it looked really good. What did you think of the Krayt Dragon having a midday snack?
I mean, yes, I mean, you can't help but flash on to Tremors and Dune when you see this. Of course, when you end up seeing the whole thing, even though it still is similar, it is a lot more frightening than those representations on screen. I also thought if it was really moving that much of the sand, there's really nowhere safe to be. They're like standing in the building like, yep, we'll be fine here. It's just happening in the sand, when it's like, well, I don't know. Do you have pylons going down 100 feet underneath this building?
It would knock through those darn pylons. Your foundation is screwed there in Mos Pelgo. The real estate market, really, you can get some dwellings pretty cheap. I thought it was very exciting. Now, admittedly, yes, that does feel like Dune. That does feel like Tremors. But throughout this episode, once again, I'm so tough on it, and I'll keep pointing out these nits I picked. But there's a reason why those are so familiar and so effective. When you could get attacked by anything under the ground, that can make every scene tense. And so I really liked that a lot.
Oh, yeah. It was very exciting.
Okay, hey, let's make a deal. You can have the armor if you help me kill this giant, incredible beast. And they had to come up with some ridiculous reason why you couldn't just blow it out of space with a spaceship. Apparently, it can feel the vibrations in the air above if there's the Razor Crest or any other ship above. So you've got to kill it kind of mano a mano. We have so many callbacks. This Krayt Dragon, Its skeleton, the skeleton of a Krayt Dragon, was first seen, yes, in 1977's A New Hope as C-3PO walked by it after he and R2 had split up in their post-escape pod journey. So now we're going to go out and we're going to destroy it. And here's yet another callback. Catfish, what did you think of Cobb Vanth's speeder?
I didn't notice what you did. I did notice it was a lot bigger, and I thought maybe Cobb has some manhood issues.
He's got a...
Because he's like, I am going to make my speeder's going to be a lot bigger than yours, and I'm going to steer it with my hands, which are clearly much larger than regular human hands.
Oh, man, we're going to miss him at all. So sure enough, yes, is this a crazy callback? Cobb Vanth's speeder is somehow retrofitted from one of Anakin Skywalker's, Little Annie's, pod racing engines. It is meant to not only kind of look like one of Anakin's pod racing engines, the fact that the paint job on it is identical to Anakin's pod racing engine that he raced back in Mos Espa, not in Mos Eisley, back in The Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 1. These callbacks are coming fast and furious. They go out and they're in this canyon as they're seeking out this hideous Krayt Dragon when suddenly, hold up, there are a bunch of dogs, wolves appearing. These space wolves, sure enough, are mastiffs. They appeared in Attack of the Clones with who? Sand people. Oh, these callbacks are so great. And then Matt Murdock on Twitter, Double M, he wanted to know, you've seen Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope yell out to scare the sand people with an imitation of a Krayt Dragon. And, of course, Lucas kept changing how that imitation sounded in all his editions of Star Wars A New Hope. And now you heard The Mandalorian. He calls out in a call to bring out the sand people. So Matt wanted to know who did it best. Who yelled the best? What did you think, Fish? What did you think of Mando's perfect imitation of a monster call? I loved it.
Plainly, I don't think a human being could sound like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that's not... Well, Mando, we're sure he's a human because he took off his mask, but he obviously went to the Richard Little School of Mimicry, so he's pretty good. And Catfish, I think in honor of Mando bringing together these two cultures, the settlers of Mos Pelgo and the Tusken Raiders, I think we should do the rest of this podcast in Tusken. What do you say? And we had like long periods of that. Did you notice?
We did. And I always keep the subtitles on just so that I don't, miss anything. And that section not subtitled, by the way.
Right. What do you think it'd be? Tusken Mando-splaining. Mando-splaining to them. He's like, listen, you've got to work together. Oh, I'm sick of his Mando-splaining. Come on. So they go out, and then we see Catfish. Let's just jump ahead to your Triple B scene. Okay, the Krayt Dragon likes to sleep, so we'll give it a bantha, so once it eats it, it'll stay tired. Joe Tusken, you go put the bantha out there. It'll be fine. It'll eat the bantha. You're perfect. And what ended up happening to Joe? He got an early retirement.
Well, speaking of Easter eggs, I couldn't help but feeling in a couple different times this episode. And actually, it didn't hit me until later on. But with the way the cave looks and everything, I felt like this was an Easter egg for Monty Python's The Holy Grail. So I was waiting for them to bring out the holy hand grenade to take care of the dragon with the sharp, pointy teeth.
Well, what's funny is they kind of did, didn't they? That's how they ended up taking care of it. The Mando had to count. They had to go into it and count to 3. 5, sir. 8, 3. This was a scene that also, we're talking about all these callbacks to the movie. This feels like a callback to itself. In chapter 2, Mando has to go to the Mudhorn Cave, and he gets into that battle. Here we go to we're going to need a bigger cave. We go to a bigger cave, apparently an empty Sarlacc pit. This Krayt Dragon, it's hungry, and sometimes it just wants a little finger food, a little...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. This is another bit of humor that I really appreciate, because I thought to myself, like, well, why does it know how that it should eat the banta rather than the human being? And I thought, well, maybe it's just because the banta is a more delectable target. But you're right. What if you just want, you're just like, I'm just a little peckish today. I don't want to gorge. Because apparently what happens, it's the same thing. It's like whenever he eats a banta, it's like having a Thanksgiving dinner where it like puts him into sleepy time for a really long time, and he feels lethargic, and he's like, today I want to get out and move. So I just want a little something to tide me over.
A little something, meaning someone. You, buddy.
Right.
And so then, let me ask you something. Then we have this kind of sit-down scene between our Tusken Raiders in their camp and where a bantha is getting its teeth cleaned. I love that. With a gaffy stick. But you have this sit-down between Cobb Vanth on one side, the Tuskens on the other. And is this in any way offensive to Native Americans in the fact that this is so much in a play on quote-unquote cowboys and Indians? What do you think, Catfish?
I didn't get that. The vibe I got was Cobb was like, whenever I meet the Tusken Raiders, I'm not meeting their best.
Well, that's also that's also what the Krayt Dragon thought. Is like, there's going to be this meal from this whole country. Kidding. Edit. This is a Disney Plus show. We can't say those naughty words. So callbacks. Love it. And so here's the new plan. Villagers and Tuskens, we've got to come together to get this Krayt Dragon to kill it. To kill it, we're going to have to get the dragon out of its cave, out over this set of bombs, because the belly of the dragon is its weak spot. And in the first part of the plan, our hero, Mandalorian, and Din Djarin, I feel like I should call him after all this time, and Cobb, they're so far back, they're not in any danger. They really didn't have much to do. They'd be like, okay, everybody, go out there and get the dragon out. We'll stay back a safe distance and blow it up to hell. Come on, guys. You're wearing armor. Let's get out there and help them.
In other words, if I had all the firepower and, these guys said they would help me, but I was the one... I guess it was the townspeople who were providing all the firepower because they were moving it from the town, yeah. Still, I don't know how the Mandalorian got to be the one who was like deciding when to blow this guy up. I will say this though, what was funny was when he's like, no, he needs to come out just a little further. They didn't blow that thing out until he was like way further out. When he was saying a little further, that was completely wrong.
Do you think Mando really doesn't like this town people? He's like, yeah, he's got to eat a few more. He's got to come further out.
The other thing was, some funny stuff here. So they're shooting it with these things, and it's like, okay, it's making angry and going back in, so maybe we shouldn't do that. But that was because their plan was, we'll shoot it, and then the 100 of us will reel it in.
How did you get drafted for that? That's like being the first guy who got drafted to put the bantha out to make it go to sleep. What do you think you would have been called on? Okay, after you harpoon it, you guys are the ones who are going to pull it out. That's when I would start making sounds like... come on.
Yeah. And this is what I would say. I'd be like, this appears to be a mighty big desert.
Right, we can move this town somewhere else.
Well, not just them, but... the Tusken Raiders, right? They don't even need a town.
Yeah, it was really sad. But it was also what's the thrilling part? This was the part where, once again, you're like, they are giving us, this is a very simple story, but they are blowing it up to epic size with this giant monster, with all these effects. The fact that it's now puking acid, hello, upset stomach. It ate the one guy, and it's like, upset stomach.
He did it like 3 times, and the first time I thought, was that acid? And the second time I thought, it looks like acid, and the third time I was like, I'm guessing that's acid, because it's a Disney show. Whenever he spewed it, all you saw was like someone, if you saw someone like through like green water or something, you never saw anybody burned. There's no real indication that was acid. You just have to assume, because he was spewing it and it was green, that it was acid.
Trust me, when I spew that stuff, it's acid.
I got it.
You don't have to guess.
It makes complete sense.
Now, Mando himself, I know, once again, this is aimed at children, but sometimes Mando was stating so many things that were kind of obvious that he reminded me of a character, Rick Ollie from The Phantom Menace, who was a pilot of Queen Amidala's silver Naboo spaceship, when he'd say things like, "There's the planet. It's one big city." And you're like, yeah, we can tell. We can see. We have eyes. Mando, a couple times in this, like, he said things that were like, "It's going back in." And you're like, yes, Mando, we can see it's going back in. Later, when it was like a pop-up, oh, wait, I'm over here. No, I'm over here. When the Krayt Dragon like burst out of the earth behind them, and it's like this giant thing bursting out behind them, everybody's turning around and shrieking. Suddenly, they cut to Mando, and he goes, "There he is." It's like, yes, Mando, we can see, hello, that he has eyes. Now, of course, I joke about Cobb and Mando staying back from the action, but at a certain point they realize, hey, we didn't blow him up, and it's jetpacks away. Love it. This really is, I'm a kid with my action figures. This is so much fun.
The only thing I don't understand about their plan is they know where a soft spot is. Why they can't work in tandem. One kind of draws him in a way to expose his belly, and then Cobb uses his missile.
Right.
The only thing that reminded me earlier when they do the flashback and Cobb shoots his missile. That thing is laser guided, right? There's no need to like bend over and make yourself into like, I'm a human cannon. I'm going to bend over.
Well, it's laser guided.
It was very awkward.
But what if your head is
it.
in the way? Like it wants to take the shortest route. It's like, I need to blast
like
that
it
way.
Could get away and then go. I mean, that's like saying that Mando's entire body is in the way of the flying birds.
Right, but hold on. Also, maybe it's the exhaust and the heat from the rocket going off that he's trying to get away from. Like, ouch!
Amazing. He doesn't want to burn ass. Makes sense. Okay, I retract my complaint about that.
Okay, it's tense. Like I said, this is the thrill of the movie Tremors and stuff. It's like this thing can burst out of the ground anywhere and eat you. I was relatively tense the whole way through. Then Mando, you really don't care this much about the armor, do you? Mando sacrifices himself so much that he tells Cobb Vanth, take care of the kid. Mando, everybody's okay. You know, like so far we've seen the beast. Yeah, it ate one sand person who literally went up to its cave and made noise, but otherwise it's just eating banthas. This isn't the worst thing ever. But no, he's going to sacrifice himself. Is this heroic, or is once again homeschooled Mando a moron?
I don't understand, because you got to think he knows that like if he dies and Cobb lives, Cobb's going to be like, well, I'm keeping the armor, I guess. Like it
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. Also, I guess one thing that Mando knows that we don't, that if you disable a suit in a certain way and you're unable to completely control it at all, it still won't crash you into a rock or the ground.
Well, he didn't care that much.
Take care of the kid, and then flat.
Oh no, we broke his neck.
Oh well, guess you're not going to.
So Mando, this Krayt Dragon, the way it would pop up and flash open its mouth, I certainly hope I wasn't the only one who thought, feed me Seymour, feed me all night long. So much fun. But Mando, his plan, and you knew it would succeed, well, actually, I didn't know his plan included him getting eaten. Why couldn't he have...
I didn't either.
Why couldn't he have just like jetpacked away after it bit into the bantha? But no...
That's exactly what I thought, too, and I wasn't even quite aware, really, that he got swallowed up, too. I thought he was able to just, like, jump aside, but it makes no sense that he wouldn't fly away. Even after that, like, I can't imagine that his armor is not going to look worse than Boba Fett's after being blowed up in the stomach.
Right. Well, that acid, the armor only covers so much of Mando's body. The acid may not be able to kill the fact that he's covered in slime once he blows out its belly and flies away, which is a fun, triumphant moment.
I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about the fact that if he was 10 feet away from the Bantha's explosive devices when it went off. Anyway, we'll just hand wave that part away.
It's fine. He blows it up, and then it's time for a good old barbecue. The softiest. Did you know that a Krayt Dragon was red meat? That's bad for your arteries, Mando.
Wow. Well, I mean, what I was surprised by is like all of a sudden, all the people who weren't there helping them must have shown up because they picked that thing clean in a matter of like an hour, and that thing was huge. But all that was left was ribs.
And not short ribs, long ribs.
Yeah.
So it's all happy. Mando and Cobb, as we spoke about before, they have their, mutual respect goodbye. Mando is taking a big bit of meat. You got to feed that baby somehow. And he's also taking the armor. And he didn't accomplish anything he wanted to. He wanted to find another Mandalorian. It really hasn't helped his quest to find Baby Yoda's people at all. But he did succeed in this side quest. He did succeed in entertaining us. And then the aspect ratio shrinks back down. We didn't talk about the aspect ratio changed. A bit like Jurassic Park because it's a very tall, big beast. Steven Spielberg went to a more boxy, square type aspect ratio because you want to take up the full frame. The television episode actually changed aspect ratio once we really got to the beast because it wanted to take it up the whole frame. Here at the end, it shrinks back down to its normal, more letterboxed look. Mando rides away. You think everything's good, but there's a shadow figure watching him. And Catfish, when this figure turned around, what were your thoughts?
It's clearly not a Mandalorian because he doesn't have his helmet on.
Good point. Okay, great. Now, did you recognize the actor? Once again, I talked to people who didn't recognize him at all. They thought, oh, this is just a shadowy threat. But because it's been 20 years since he appeared in Attack of the Clones, and he's now bald. They added a scar to his face. There wasn't much to see. Could you tell that this was Temuera Morrison, the actor who portrayed Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, and sure enough, had a clone made for him, an unaltered clone, one without obedience built into him, and one whose age should not be modified? Could you tell that this was possibly, most likely, Boba Fett?
I honestly, if there hadn't been all this brouhaha about it, I would not have known that it was Boba Fett. So that's just sort of it's just kind of interesting the way that happened. That kind of without the armor, I would not have recognized. I would not know who he is. But I do. But I did recognize him. He's been in so many movies.
Oh, yeah.
I think the last big movie he is in, he was Aquaman's father.
That's right. He was Temuera Morrison. A great Kiwi. Hey, Kiwi. Hey, Mando. Hey, Kiwi. Hey, Weequay. Everybody gets called out. Yeah, this is him. So are you excited now that you know that this is Boba Fett? We've already talked about this a bit, but how do you feel? Is this tying it too much to the original series characters and actors and you wish it were its own thing? Or are you happy to see, once again, that they're paying off all these things?
Well, I will say this. Like, I'm aware that there is this just a crazy, crazy interest in an outsized interest in Boba Fett compared to the screen time he's gotten in the movies. And that somehow people just kind of fixated on him, and there's been a lot about him. And so I don't really care that much about him because I'm not that fixated. But let's face it, if people weren't fascinated by, if there wasn't all this brouhaha about Boba Fett, we wouldn't be watching a series called The Mandalorian.
That's exactly right.
So, I'm fine with it. I just as I said when we went over the shot-by-shot review of the trailer, I just don't want him to dominate this season. I don't think he will. I was worried that there'd be little drops of information about him, and then we would meet him later on. So, but the fact that we've already sort of brought him up in the first episodes mean he's probably not gonna overwhelm this season.
I wouldn't think so either. Once again, there were some huge Star Wars fans who couldn't recognize him because time is gold. Now, technically, if Boba Fett was an unaltered clone, he should be about early 40s based on the timeline. He should look a lot like the actor looked 20 years ago when he played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. So it's forgivable, but it'll be interesting. I think if they open up this world more, I think I'll really like it. I think that next episode's going to really tell me a lot about whether this is a great move, not just a fun Easter egg for, Star Wars lore fans, or if this is something where the show doesn't feel like it could stand on its own feet and feels like it has to add this stuff. Listeners, we've talked about so many points and questions and thoughts. Who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. Once again, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave those comments. Write us on social media at PHQ. The word double, the single letter P, then the letters HQ for headquarters. At PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ. All right, Catfish, we've got our things.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to your Twidorable moments?
All right, so this is a time for we'll vote, and then we need to have our listeners vote. Here are the moments that I picked out for judging.
Okay.
One was you mentioned Twyoda closing up his shell when Mando is going to fight all those dudes at the boxing match. Mm-hmm. The second one is Twoda's ears flapping in the wind when they're on the racer.
Big smile on his face.
Oh my God, he loved it like a dog. I'm surprised he didn't have his tongue out, but I'm not sure I want to see that. So one of them, when he was when they were in Mos Pelgo, he was looking in a bowl when Mando and Cobb were speaking, and then after all the excitement, he came out of the bowl.
Hey, who's in this spittoon? It's me.
Oh, yeah, he comes out and he's got tobacco juice all over him. That'd be amazing. When the set two between Cobb and the Tusken Raiders, Mando decided to break it up by blasting a little fire in there. And you know how much babies love fire. Mando was like, ooh, fire.
Oh, so good.
And then the very last nominee is when Mando was on the back of the racer and there was the dragon piece on there when Twyoda was eyeing and fingering the slab of meat like it was a Jimmy Dean sausage.
Catfish, just because you mentioned Jimmy Dean sausage, that's the one I'm picking. That's so good.
Okay.
It makes me hungry just thinking about that delicious Krayt Dragon meat. That's my pick. How about you? Which one do you like?
All right. Well, for me, I'm a dog lover. There's nothing quite so glorious as a dog with its head out the window, with its mouth open. And so I'm going to pick Twyoda with the ears flapping in the wind on the back of the racer.
Oh, it was a great shot.
Just living his best Twyoda life.
Yeah, he's the only one enjoying 2020.
Oh man! And then we have our Mandalicious line of the week.
You give me some.
Okay, all right. I got three. I have to nominate just one because it was so funny to me. It was the Tatooine version of a broken clock is right twice a day. When Cobb says, "Once in a while, both suns shine on a womp rat's tail." In the bar when Mando and Cobb look like they're going to get into it. Cobb says, we're going to do this in front of the kid. And Mando says, he's seen worse.
I love it.
And then after the Tusken Raider gets eaten into the Banthu, Mando turns to Cobb and says, they might be open to some fresh ideas.
Love it.
I'm going to pick out of the lines I gave, I'm going to pick they might be open to some fresh ideas. That's my Mandalicious line of the week.
Love it. Okay, listeners, let's get to some grief beefs. We're calling it the Bounty Hunter Guild Battle. Who wins the puck? This is where Catfish and I enter into the arena. We don't have Vibra axes. We have Vibra tongues. And we're going to battle. And listeners, you get to choose who wins this battle. So Catfish, let's talk about our first battle of the season. What's it about?
Twyoda. Still kind of a mystery, really a mystery. Who knows if that mystery ever gets solved because someone's like, hey, can you help me build this house? And the Mando's like, sure, what's it going to take? 3-4 months tops? I got time. So we don't know about Baby Twyoda's nature. So the real question is, Baby Twyoda, evil or ultimate evil?
All right, so I'll go first. And I'll say the child is just going to flirt with the dark side of the Force. And I'm just going to say regular evil. Twoda's face in both seasons, as you pointed out, Catfish, it lights up when there's some violence going down. When he saw Mando shoot out that flamethrower, he was like, yes, good. He's got a little palpy in him. And the dark side users want him. They know about him. Moff Gideon knows about him. Dr. Pershing knows about him. Those are bad dudes. And if they know about him and if they've spent time with him, then he's got a little evil in him. And perhaps that's why Moff Gideon wants him. He knows that if he can turn this Force user dark, they ruled the galaxy with a couple of dark Force users, a couple of Sith, for a generation as the Empire. They see the potential, the darkness in Twyoda, and they want it. I don't think he'll go the full Monty. I don't think he'll go the full Sith. I don't think he'll pull a Kylo and kill his daddy. But I think they're going to flirt with it. He certainly doesn't have the greatest teacher, the greatest master. He needs Yoda to train him. Or Ben Kenobi, who messed up with Anakin's training, would still be better than Din Djarin. So I'm saying slightly evil. I'm saying regular evil.
All right. Well, I'm glad you picked that because the clear answer is obviously he is ultimate evil. No. There's some things that really bother me in life, and that is someone who basically doesn't do any work on their own and just lives off the sweat of somebody else's brow.
Love it.
That is what Twyoda is doing
what
right now.
What do you mean? He saves him. If a Mudhorn's about to kill him, he saves him. He carries his weight.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but he's also capricious in that, too. There's several more times when, to any casual observer, it would have seemed that the Mandalorian was at the end of his luck. And Twyoda didn't even raise a cup of tea in those cases, much less raise an eyebrow or a finger or anything to save him in those cases. Basically, what's really happening here is that it's clear that Twyoda is he's undersized. Have you ever seen any of those movies where it's like they adopt an 8-year-old girl and it turns out she's really 25 and evil? That's what's going on here.
Catfish, we watch Disney Plus, not Lifetime Movie Channel.
Yeah. No, it's not Life. So he's clearly just pretending to be a child. Okay. He's really just a short person, and basically he's just mocking the Mandalorian the whole way, living off of him, and basically several times he's been like, I'll save him this time, but several times this person that's cared for him or whatever, he doesn't bother to try to save him. So clearly, anytime you have an older person pretending to be a young person, they're going to end up killing the other person, and there's no doubt that they're ultimate evil. Twyoda, ultimate evil.
What's wrong with an older person pretending to be a younger person? I've been doing it on my dating apps for years.
Yes. Hello, fellow young people.
Hey, now. Listeners, join in on the silliness. What do you think? Will Twyoda flirt with the dark side? Will he be the new ultimate bad guy? I love it. He's already tried to kill Cara Dune, and certain people on social media have been trying to kill her for a while after some of the things she's tweeted. So he's part of the resistance, old Twyoda. Let us know who wins this fight. Is Catfish right? Is Bubba right? Write to us on social media at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. Now, Catfish, because this is the very first episode and we're recording the day after it premiered, we only have, from what I can see, a couple bits of feedback. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready for them. Yeah, sure.
Our good buddy on Twitter, Patman23. That's at Patman23. One T in Patman23. He says he's looking forward to our podcast. And he said, it's tough to be one of the red shirt Tusken Raiders, honestly. He also said, speaking of tough, maybe Catfish will agree that Mando is a tough dude, emphasizing the number of times he needs to be rescued.
I'm sorry, I misinterpreted that. I thought Patman was giving me a hard time for last season saying Mando's not so tough because he always needs someone else to save his bacon. And so Patman's saying, maybe I will now recognize that Mando is tough. I mean, I'll agree, Mando is in a tough situation trying to take care of this being that is completely hoodwinking him and is just toying with his life. But I'd say the jury's still out on Mando being tough.
Well, we'll find out. He flew into a Krayt Dragon's mouth? That's pretty tough. Maybe that's why he couldn't be eaten. He was too tough.
He was next to like 4 tons of explosives and not a scratch on him. I guess that's tough. You know what? I'm not going to say tough. I'm going to say after that, I'll say he's hardy.
Well, do you think Mando's evil because he didn't try to save the Bantha?
There's only room for one ultimate evil on this
There
show.
can be only none. All right, listeners.
Conniving Twyoda.
Listeners, we want to give away these prizes. You can see them on our Twitter account, our Instagram account, our Facebook account. Once again, that's at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/PHQ. We want to give away these prizes, so I'm asking you to do a bit more, but I promise you're going to win. I can't promise 100%, but I think if you submit something, you're going to win something. Look at those prizes on our social media accounts. There's some great stuff out there. So once again, take a screen grab of your account and subscribe and send it to us on social media, facebook.com/PHQ, at PHQ. You'll be eligible to win. And again, the ultimate prize, the Mega Mando, is so incredible. You're going to need to clear some space in your house for it. It's incredible. It really is awesome. Well, let's end on a positive note, Catfish, and we were both very positive about this episode. Let's end with our classic good grief of the week. Do you have a good grief for this week, Catfish?
Well, can you explain what the good grief is again?
Well, Chuck Brown.
Oh, yeah, right.
Chuck Brown in Arabish was always saying, good grief, when he was frustrated. But in this case, we're actually taking it to mean something positive, whether it's on The Mandalorian, whether it's part of the Star Wars world, whether it's something out in the world. It can be an actual event, it can be a thing, it can be an idea, something to leave us on a positive note about, and we'll always leave you, listeners, with a positive note. So, Catfish, what is your good grief this week?
You know, I'm going to have to give a good... I'm going to say it's part of the episode here. I'm going to say a good grief. I think anybody who's watched television movies the last 15, 20 years knows Timothy Olyphant.
Oh, yeah.
But when he took that helmet off and with the haircut and the salt and pepper, I mean, he is... I'm going to crown him our new Snow King. That is some older dude that is smoking. Someone needs to take over the mantle from Sean Connery. And I'm giving it to Timothy Olyphant because I thought he looked mandalicious tonight.
I think that is a great thing, Catfish. Like those crystal foxes in The Last Jedi. That's what he is, a crystal fox. My good grief this week is, listeners, it is good to be back, even though I went through and tried to find every nit that I could pick out of the Tatooine desert sand. The thing, I want you to remember my original note. Just watching this, it was fun, it was happy. We need something that we can just put on, and it's just a fun blast. This was, Catfish, we didn't even talk about it. This is the longest episode they've ever done. It didn't feel it. It's still a typical Mando story. It still gives you what you want, the fun and excitement we need as we enter into this dark fall 2020.
Exactly. I'll take every single episode I can get of it. Loved it tonight.
We're going to be here every Monday following a brand new episode, listeners. So please talk to us. Provide us with a person to give these great prizes to, because we want you to join us on this journey. For everybody here, my name's Bubba. You can find me, my specific Twitter handle, at FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM, at FitandTrim on Twitter.
And my name is Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter. And remember to contact, we've got our big bosses. Their Twitter account is at PHQ.
Oh, yeah.
But we will talk to you next time on
Parsec Passion. That way I don't have to edit in the sound effect.
I know we don't want to see people again. We've been complaining about not seeing people again. But there has to be a way. Can't the client have twin brother?
Hey, clone the client.
Clone client.
Parsec Passion. All right, guys, we'll talk to you next week.